Are you like me and sometimes wonder why PGA and LPGA Tour players stand so close to the ball? Well, you're not alone, and it seems to miff a lot of us. And when we go to the golf course, we tend to see a lot of players standing much farther away from the ball than they are standing closer. So what gives? Why do PGA Tour and LPGA Tour players stand so close to the golf ball? One of the reasons that PGA and LPGA Tour players tend to stand so close to the golf ball is for a reason that most of us aren't able to do from a postural position. What I mean by that, and to steal a term from James Lights, they're not able to manage their lower grape and their upper grape. And what we're talking about here would be a lower center of mass, or a lower half of the body center of mass, and an upper half center of the mass. So if you think about having a grape in the middle of your pelvis, so two hips make a pelvis, and then we think about having a grape in the middle of our neck, we now have these two grapes and we have a midline. So essentially what we want to think about is that the lower grape, because energy comes from the ground up, is going to be the dominant grape, meaning that it's going to move first. And because we have to maintain balance, the upper grape is going to move secondary relative to the dominant grape below. So when we set up at posture, what we tend to see is that a lot of people get the lower grape moving backwards away from the ball and the upper grape moving towards the ball. And when we do this, it tends to make the club angle, or the lie angle of the club, much flatter, meaning that I'm going to be farther away from the ball. But it's also going to create radial extension at the wrist level, which is going to create some issues with controlling the club face later on in the golf swing. Additionally, when I tend to get my two grapes out of vertical alignment, I also tend to put a lot of undue stress on the facet joints in the back, which makes it very difficult for me to rotate my upper body or thoracic region around my lower body. I'm kind of stuck here and my back won't let me continue. And a lot of that stems from getting the upper and lower grapes unstacked from a vertical alignment down the line. So now that we understand more about the two grapes that we have to manage throughout the golf swing, what are some things that we can do to help us get into better posture to dynamically stack those two grapes and make sure that we're in an alignment with our spine to where we're not creating compression? Well, very simply, we're going to put the golf club down for this one, and we're going to just put our hands right behind our backs, just like this, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to get a nice big chest. So we don't want to feel like our shoulders are in front of our chest. We want to make a nice big chest. And when most of us do this, what we tend to find, including myself, is that the rib cage tends to push forward. And the reason for that is because we tend to be extending through the low back region, right? So what we want to do here is we want to keep our rib cage down. Okay, we don't want to have our rib cage in front of our chest. We want to have our rib cage behind our chest, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to lean forward. Okay, we're going to lean all the way out like we're tipping onto our toes. So you can see here, we can see here that when I get my ribs down, I'm leaning out onto my toes. You can see that my heels are lifting slightly as I do this. So what we want to do is we want to stay really toe forward. You're going to feel some shake in the legs. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bend the knees, but stay forward with the chest, keeping the ribs down. And now when we get into that postural position, we can see that the upper grape is more vertically aligned with my lower grape, and we're going to feel a lot of tension in the legs. We're going to feel more on the balls of our feet, and now we're going to be in a much more dynamically loaded and stacked position, and it's going to be much easier for me to rotate in both directions. So now that we've addressed the upper center of mass and the lower center of mass becoming unstacked towards and away from the ball, what can we do about the sliding towards and away from the target? This tends to be one of the big reasons that players also cannot stand closer to the golf ball, is because when we slide side to side, it takes away our ability once again to create any kind of twist or any kind of torque. So what do we want to see when it comes to preventing the sliding side to side motion? Well, the first thing that we want to see is that we want to see that when we get into our posture once again, we want to make sure that our instep, or the inside of our feet, are relatively aligned with our SC joints, right here, just outside of the collarbones. So we can see that we've got that just inside of the insteps. And now from here, we're gonna be much easier to kind of, instead of want to slide side to side, now it's gonna be much easier to turn and twist, staying inside of our knees with our hips. So now we can see that my knees aren't wanting to dive in or move side to side. Rather, by getting them outside of the hips and aligned with the SC joints, now we can see that it's much easier to make a full twist in both directions because we're not wanting to slide side to side. So now that we've addressed the posture, which is a big part of why tour players are standing much closer to the golf balls than amateurs, now we can talk about trying to take this new dynamic vertically stacked alignment with the spine and the lower and upper center of mass and starting to transfer that new skill into swinging a golf club. So what is some drills that we can do to start incorporating some of these new feels? And it's very, very easy. This is a great one. So one thing that you're gonna wanna make sure that you're using during this drill is you're going to wanna have a mirror in front of you. So this is a great one to do at the gym. And all we're gonna do is we're just gonna put our hands across our shoulders and we're gonna start with our feet together. And we're just gonna do a nice little step to the right, keeping my toe pointed towards the camera. And then from here, I'm just gonna do a lunge into my right side. So I'm really loading into this right hip. I can feel the pressure really loading into the right cuboid in my foot. So when we think about where that would be, it's right here. And I'm really pressing into my hip, into that cuboid. And what that's causing is that's causing pronation in my ankle, which creates stability. So now when I want to rotate, it's very easy for me because I have stability and now I have something to rotate around. So once again, starting to kind of take our feels into application, we're just going to start nice and stacked. We're going to be leaning towards the ball. We want to be confrontational. We want to own the ball, not be owned by it, right? I'm stealing that from Fast Eddie. Thanks for that one, Eddie. So we're going to be confrontational, own the ball. We're going to do a lunge to the right, really load in to that right cuboid. You're going to feel a lot of right glute here, and we want to keep the spine nice and neutral. I shouldn't see my spine outside of my hip here. So we're just going to stay nice and neutral. And then from here, we're just going to twist up into our top of our swing position. We should feel a lot of right side here. So now that we can do lunges to the right and we're creating a nice rotation with the thoracic region, meaning that we're taking our right SC joint and twisting it all the way up and around behind our left SC joint, looking like this, you can now see that we're able to create much more depth with the hands, which creates much more torque throughout the body. So one of the biggest things that we want to see with the lunge is we want to see a player be able to create a lunge in both directions. So once we get comfortable being able to lunge into that right side and twist, we want to start being able to feel like we can lunge into that left side. And then from there, we want to twist up and through that. So we're going to keep the pressure more left now. It's loaded, and I'm just going to stand up and push and twist all the way around. So now that we've done a lot of drills and developed some new feels, what does this start looking like in application with the golf swing? So when we get into our posture, right, and we remember to do all the things we talked about, so we're gonna be more up on the toes or the balls of the feet with the heels up a little bit. I feel like I'm definitely leaning more forward now. I'm gonna get my chest nice and big. And then remember, we're gonna bend the knees. So now I really feel my legs active. And when I put this golf club down and sole it flat on the ground, we can see that I'm much closer to the ball than most people appear when we're out playing golf on the weekends. So it would be really difficult for me to be in this posture and have the golf club way out here. That feels really weird to me. So we definitely don't want to see the chest or the upper grape getting way out in front of the lower. We want to create that nice vertical stack, and then we want to let the golf club find the ground. And what you're going to find is that now you look a lot more like a PGA or LPGA tour player and a lot less like the guy who's on his way to the chiropractor. So we hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe and share. And until next time, keep grinding.